Okay, I'll do that very happily. Welcome everybody, and special welcome to Michael and Stacey, who are going to be our presenters this afternoon of their research in the ACT on gang-gangs and their nesting. And this project's been going on since 2017. And there's quite a lot of information that was discovered through this project, which is actually new to science. So it's really exciting for us. And again, we're interested in perhaps doing more research in this area in conjunction with Michael and Stacey. So Michael Mulvaney is Dr. Michael Mulvaney, sorry, is an ex-government ecologist who worked for ACT, New South Wales and the Commonwealth. He's one of the supervisors of the Canberra Gang-gang project and has been involved in several other citizen science projects dealing with fire and orchid occurrence, competitor and predator interactions at Superb Parrot nesting hollow entrances, and the occurrence and ecology of the small ant blue butterfly and matching caterpillars to adult moth species. And I know that's only a tiny fraction of all the things you've been involved in, Michael. So very much welcome to you, and also to Stacey. Stacey's a senior conservation officer with the ACT government and coordinates the National Gang-gang Working Group, which includes many researchers, community members, local and state government representatives with a keen interest in the conservation of the species. And with support from the ACT government, Stacey is also embarking on a postgraduate research project to better understand the ecology of gang-gangs within the ACT. And might I say, I think that's a brilliant project to be working on. I think you'll have a lot of fun with that. So without further ado, can I hand over to whoever's going to talk first? There we go. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Libby. Hopefully that's come up okay. Apologies to everyone. I'm going to keep my video off. I'm currently hotspotting off my phone, and so I'm struggling with speed. Before the star of our gang show speaks, Dr. Michael Mulvaney, I'll just provide you with a really brief overview of the national priorities for the species, as well as some information on how the ACT government and ANU, together with the local community, are working towards better understanding the needs of this iconic species. Michael, do you briefly want to mention what you'll be speaking on?
Yeah, I'll just be trying to spruik business and get people down the coast to expand our project. Thanks, Tracey.
Great. Okay, so in case we don't already appreciate how gorgeous these animals are, here's a picture of a very cute male that was captured by a community member in the ACT and uploaded on Canberra Nature Map. Gang-gangs are relatively small cockatoos. They're found in forested areas across Southeast Australia. Like other cockatoos, they breed in hollows of live and dead trees within peri-urban and wilderness areas. Gang-gangs are a canopy specialist. They forage predominantly on eucalypt and acacia seeds, but they also eat insect larvae. And in urban areas, they're often seen eating a range of non-native species. They love to eat fruits of hawthorns, etc., other non-native trees. As I mentioned, they're an incredibly iconic bird across their range. They have been the faunal emblem of the ACT since 1997. And they're also the logo of both the ACT Parks and Conservation Service and the Canberra Ornithologist Group, which is our leading community group who's undertaking bird research and education in the ACT. But despite their cultural significance, gang-gangs are really not well understood. They're probably one of the least understood cockies in Australia, I think. So a better understanding of their ecology and habitat requirements is really required to inform conservation management decisions in the future. What we do know from a national perspective is that gang-gangs are in decline. Over the last 21 years, there's been a drop in national reporting rates by approximately 69%. And due to dramatic declines in 2005, the gang-gang was listed as vulnerable in New South Wales. It's now being considered for listing nationally as endangered. And this EPBC determination is likely to be finalised by early to mid next year. It's likely that declines in the population have been exacerbated by the most recent large-scale wildfires. These fires are believed to have impacted between 28 and 36% of the national distribution. And of their habitat that was burnt, the estimates are around 60% that were burnt at high or very high severity. As part of the Commonwealth Government's bushfire recovery efforts, $10 million was earmarked for native species that were severely impacted by the wildfires. So a group of experts identified, I think it was 7 mammals, an alpine reptile group, and 3 birds as priority species for intervention. And this includes the gang-gang cockatoo. So each species or species group was identified, was allocated up to $1 million each. To best decide how these funds should be spent, national working groups were established for all the species and species groups. And with support from the Commonwealth, the ACT government established and currently coordinates the working group for the gang-gang. So this group includes, as Libby mentioned, community members, land managers, state and federal government reps, and researchers across the range of the species. It was late April when the group first met and established a list of priority actions to improve the conservation status of the gang-gang. And during this workshop, the group came up with many ideas, but that really acknowledged the importance of filling knowledge gaps through both formal and community research and monitoring, and the need for immediate on-ground action as well. So the Commonwealth has provided in principle support to 7 projects totaling over $700,000. The delivery agents, including the ACT government, are eagerly awaiting the final approval processes to be completed, and we hope their contracts will be finalised by the end of this month. But provided all progresses as expected, approximately $400,000 will go towards formal research. 177 will be spent on community outreach and citizen science. So this includes expanding BirdLife Australia's community outreach projects such as Birds on Farms, Birds in Backyards, and Birds in Schools programs, and also expanding the citizen science data collection app Nature Mapper, which I'm sure Michael will discuss. And also $141,000 on habitat rehabilitation. And this includes trialling the efficacy of nest tubes by the Urbadella Shire. Within the ACT, citizen scientists really have been leading the way to better understand the gang-gang cockatoo. Community members regularly upload gang-gang sightings to Canberra Nature Map, and a dedicated bunch have been working to locate and monitor nesting sites. Thanks to citizen scientists, several key breeding locations have been identified in the urban area, and we are beginning to get a picture of the type of hollows gang-gangs use. However, there is still so much we don't understand about the occupancy of gang-gangs, their population size, or habitat requirements across the region. The ACT government's application for Commonwealth bushfire recovery funding is primarily to undertake research to begin to fill these knowledge gaps. Work will include undertaking extensive searches for key foraging and breeding locations, with a real focus on Namadgi National Park, which covers about almost half of the ACT, as well as areas within the Blue Mountains and Albury-Wodonga. Funds will also be used to collect data on reproductive success by monitoring nest survival and output of known nests in the ACT and Albury-Wodonga areas. The ACT government's current focus on the species is also demonstrated in the support they are providing me to undertake postgrad research with the ANU. This project aims to determine the occupancy of gang-gangs across the territory and to better understand their habitat requirements. We'll gain a better understanding of gang-gangs' occupancy in relation to altitude, vegetation type, and other habitat variables, including fire history. And we'll also identify new breeding areas to be monitored for reproductive success. I'll also aim to be developing a standard sort of survey methodology that can be used for gang-gangs across their range. Given the interest and enthusiasm of our local community, a blitz approach to occupancy surveys is being trialled. So 100 sites will be distributed across the urban areas and Namadgi National Park. These sites will bear no resemblance to the placement of the dots on this map. And we'll be asking community members to select a small group of sites to record any gang-gangs they see for 5 or 10 minutes at each site. So the Canberra Nature Map website will be a key tool in allowing community members to select their sites before heading out. Surveys of all the sites will be undertaken at around the same time, and repeats will occur over 3 weeks at the end of September and into early October. We have begun spreading the word to our local community through existing channels, and we have an Eventbrite page up to garner community interest. Now, this QR code links you to that page, acknowledging that we're all in lockdown and nobody's expected to be travelling from New South Wales to here. If you do want more information about the research, pre and post surveys, please feel free to jump on that website and have a look. Thank you.
So look, as Stacey said, the gang-gang's in trouble and it needs our help, and we know very little about it. And this is about how citizen science can get information on nesting and foraging. And really the only thing we're then missing out is movement. And having just had Erna and Lauren talk about how they're studying their movement, that sort of got me inspired to have a closer look at the bellies of gang-gang. So who knows, we might be able to move into that third area. But yeah, I'm hoping that we will be able to add the South Coast to an area of study. So Stacey mentioned that there's the Blue Mountains and Albury-Wodonga area, but we're also hoping that South Coast will be part of that. And there will be, if we get that support from the Commonwealth, there will be some funding and materials that we would be able to send your way. So first we'll talk about nesting, and the way we get citizens involved is we say, well, if you see gang-gangs doing anything around a tree hollow, can you take that photo and down your part of the world, can you add it to iNaturalist? There's a project that I've set up called Gang-gang Nest Trees. Just go add an observation and add that sighting. That then gets into the system. And just to show how it works, sorry, once you put in an observation, you're asked questions about what the gang-gang is actually doing around a hollow, and that just helps us prioritise the likelihood that actually that hollow is one that they're using for nesting. So obviously, if they're in or entering the hollow, that's a lot more likely to be a nest site than one that they're just perched nearby. Just to say how it might work down your way of the world, this is basically in the Canberra area. There's 15,000 odd gang-gang records, and there's a lot down your part of the world as well. A lot of those are in the urban area, but they are pretty well scattered. So that's pretty daunting if you're saying, well, where are they nesting within that area? So we teamed up with the Canberra ecologist group and said, we asked people to take those photos of gang-gangs where they saw them round hollows and to put them on, well, in our case, it'll be Nature Mapper, but it's going to be exactly the same for you down there on iNaturalist. And this is what they came up with. The bigger and darker the blue, the higher the priority of the site. So that's, they've got that behaviour, or there are multiple records from the one site. And we had, I think it was 149 people put up 136 trees, which we then prioritised and got people to watch. But actually people, being what they are, they put their hands up and we had all the trees watched, and then they'd be listening and they'd be hearing gang-gangs next door. So we actually had more trees watched than what we asked to be. So we had about 150 trees that were watched by people. And from that, we've identified 34 nest trees. So you can basically see that where we did find the nest trees was where you tend to get the clusters of those photos of birds around hollows, and where we got the actual trees was where we're getting those clusters of the photos. So getting the photos does help you focus in within, but you can actually make a start from the records you've already got. Now, we actually asked people to stand and watch trees, and that was pretty time consuming and it took a long time. Then we came up with a better method, which is what I think you should be using down the coast. And we would be providing one or a few of these down to you if you guys put your hands up for the project. So it's an endoscope on a pole, which you attach a torch to because you've got to look in the hollow and the light on the endoscope isn't quite big enough. It's the same endoscope that your plumber puts down the pipe to see where the blockage is. We just put it on a pole and you can either use it to take a selfie of yourself or it's Wi-Fi, it's Bluetooth to your smartphone, or you can actually look in and see what's in the hollow and say, oh yeah, that is a hollow that's being utilised by a gang-gang. And from about October to January, you'll find you'll find a gang-gang in a hollow all the time. So it is pretty easy to check if they're there. We then ask people to observe a hollow once it's identified because we don't want to put that camera in that often. So yeah, once or twice is about the limit. But you can actually also use that camera to check out, well, who else is interested in hollows that the gang-gangs are using. So one of the things that the Blue Mountain people are really worried about is they're saying that the soft-crested cockatoo is taking over all the gang-gang hollows, and that's why they're suffering. In some cases, it's an 85% decline in gang-gangs in the last sort of 25 years in their observations. So not only can you get data on where gang-gangs are, where those nest trees are, which you can then protect, but you can also start to get data on some of the competitors for those hollows, whether they're soft-crested cockatoos or eastern rosellas. But also you can start to get info on some of the predators that might be involved and yeah, the impacts of those. And brush-tailed opossums are thought to be a threat to the gang-gang, particularly in urban areas. So again, we've really got very little information, but this is a way that we can pull our information across the range of the gang-gang and compare what's happening in Canberra with what's happening coast, what's happening in burnt areas, what's happening in unburnt areas. Surprisingly, you find tree hollows are often flooded with water. And that can be a bad thing for gang-gangs, particularly as climate change is predicting that we're going to get more intense, heavier summer rainfall when gang-gangs are breeding. You actually can have chicks drown because of water flowing in the hollow, but also tree hollows are pretty important water source for gang-gangs. And that's a lot of the reason why you see gang-gangs enter hollow is that actually they're going in for a drink of water. This is one of the hollows myself and Roy were watching, and one day we saw 6 different gang-gangs go into this tree and we're saying, oh, what's happening here? And then that overnight we had one of the rare bits of rain we had that year, and the next day we came back and we noticed that these birds were just drinking from the top of the hollow. So yeah, it would be also interesting to know what percentage of trees have water in them and how they're being utilised by the gang-gangs and how they might be important as that water source, particularly during drier times. From watching also, we do learn things about gang-gangs. So in the, we've been watching gang-gangs for 4 years, and in the 1919-20 season, we had 6 behaviours that we'd never actually seen before. So one of those, we actually got death of chicks, and we think those chicks died from heat exhaustion. And we got 4 chicks that left the hollow prematurely. One got stuck on the edge of the hollow. Fortunately, Dad managed to push her back after about 2 or 3 hours. And we also had 3 fall on the ground and they were helpless, they couldn't fly. We actually were able to pick them up and put them back in the hollow. 2 of them on the 3rd tree, unfortunately, it was in the Botanic Gardens and they wouldn't allow us to climb their tree. Unfortunately, the fledgling at the Botanic Gardens got predated. We think either by a currawong or a fox. But the other two that were able to put back in the hollow, they actually were accepted by the parents and fledged and are still happily living today. So that was something we learned. But the gang-gang is one of our cool-tempered parrots. And you just see the dotted line on the top is the hottest temperature ever for a day over the last 100 years. And you can see that 2009, 20 years, we kept hitting the records. And that last dead chick over here, as you saw in the photo, it was pretty stinky by the time we found it. And we think it probably died around this time, around that hot time. So yeah, there is that conclusion. And again, if we can identify tree hollows, we can start to do things like put thermometers in them and just check, is that temperature a real issue for the gang-gang? So we can start to add to that. So yeah, finding hollows is encouraged. Another thing that we've done here is the measurements from the hollows that we've found. Well, only 12 of them actually did we provide at the time. We've since found more, but it's the data which has been used that people in Eurobodalla designed the gang-gang nest box for came from data from 12 trees, but they're all our 12 trees. Who knows what happens down your part of the world and whether it's the same. So it'd be really good to get some other data into that for the nest box design. And tomorrow there's going to be an excellent talk on nest box, and I encourage you to be part of that. There'll be more talk on that. But yeah, that's another thing that our data has provided. It has given that figures for the design of the nest box, which is being trialled at the moment. The other thing I'd like to plug is the Hungry Parrots project, which is already up on iNaturalist, and you can add observations for either gang-gangs or glossy backs, and it basically from that we can tell. What I'm hoping is we'll get inundated with thousands of records of gang-gangs eating things, and from that we'll be able to see, well, what food items are relatively more important than others. Does that change across the range? And if we identify more active nesting hollows or nesting boxes, is the diet within a certain distance from a nesting box, does that differ than elsewhere? But we just need that data first to actually start to drill down into what they're eating. Yeah, sure they eat wattles and eucalypts and exotics, but it's actually only a small portion of wattles and eucalypts that they're actually eating. And with the exotic fruit, is that at particular times of the year or not? We just don't know. So it'd be really good to build up that record. So again, if we can have people's records for that, that would be fantastic. So this photo is from Sam. I love her photography. And we've got a heap of volunteers of watching gang-gangs for us, and we call them the Gang-gang-gang. So yeah, we'd love actually you to become part of the Gang-gang-gang too. But just to reiterate what we're trying to do, we're just trying to learn more about this bird so that we can better conserve it. If we find more nest trees, we can protect those nest trees. We can protect them from clearance. We can protect them from fires. We can do things for that, but also we can then use that for research sites into the breeding success of the gang-gang. Now in ACT, we have 1.4 gang-gangs per nest born each year, and our population's steady. Why are we steady and we've had that big decline elsewhere? We really want to start to drill down, and we want to compare our results with what's happening elsewhere. So yeah, really encourage you to find those, get people to put those sightings up, and then to have a group of you down there who are prepared to go out with the cameras and check out those sites and record that data and then carry it further. For the diet, again, it'd be good to encourage people down there to put those sightings up of what they're eating, but also I would like to make you managers of the 2 iNaturalist projects so that you can actually do just what I am, administer that, identify it, contact people, encourage them and support them. So yeah, that's basically where we're headed. I'm sure I've forgotten heaps, but we'll leave it there and open for questions. Doug, can you take this back from me? Because I'm bound to stuff it up otherwise. Thank you. Thanks, Doug.
Thank you very much, Michael. That was fantastic. And Stacey, it's a brilliant project that you've got there. And it's not until you study things intensively like that that you really find out what's going on. As you said, you found out a lot of new stuff because of the work that you've done here. I do envy you the number of people you've got going out and looking around Canberra. Luckily, you've got lots and lots of people there who are doing it. But we've got good guys down here on the coast, and I'm sure that's the same up at Budawang too. So let's have a look at some of the questions that we've got. Annie asked whether...
Libby, do you want me to just give those people the microphone and we can
surely
try that? So Annie should be able to speak now. I've pressed the button, but
yeah, we got it. Hey, Michael.
Hi.
Yeah, I think you've answered my question, but I was asking about nest boxes, whether you'd tried those and how successful they were, and noting also that you mentioned the Eurobodalla Shire Council project on the nest tubes, which I think will be interesting. So are you working with that project at all, or providing advice on what you've learnt over time?
Yeah, so to date, as far as I know, there's no record at all of a gang-gang using a nest box anywhere. So we provided the Eurobodalla people with the measurements of the nesting hollows that we measured, actually like a fairly shallow hollow. And it's longer than it's wide, but anyway, all those measurements went to the Eurobodalla Shire, and they've got, we've had a men's shed up here build 60, and they've built some down the coast, and they're being trialled. Now, one of the things we found from our study is that gang-gangs do like to nest in clusters near each other. So if you're putting in a nest box which isn't near one of those clusters, the chances of losing it, them using it are probably low. So to actually test whether the nest boxes are used, and we want to put them up in known breeding sites. At the moment, we're the only ones who know breeding sites. So we're putting them up within a breeding area. Well, that was about to happen. Hopefully after we can put them up after lockdown.
Yeah, they're all sitting there ready to go.
Yeah. Well, actually, we could do it in our hour. Look, I've been spraying reeds on Weed Hill in my hour activity, so why not? If you do it on your own,
It would be good exercise.
it's okay.
Big.
Yeah, it's exercise. So yes, but anyway, yeah, hopefully in a year's time. Well, we're probably expecting we won't get much activity this year. Just gang-gangs check out hollows all the time, and I wonder if they'll take a while to get used to them or whatever. But after 2 or 3 years of the trial, we'll see if they're using them or not.
Okay, thanks, Michael.
And I think we've got an interesting question that's been raised by both Sam and Rohan here. Rohan, would you like to take the mic and talk about the difference between coastal forests and ACT trees?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, lovely.
I think, Michael, you were saying is about 7.5 metres was the average nest tree, or the hollow, I should say.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, certainly within the tall forests, not just on the coast, but also up in the tableland forests and even just the taller forests closer to Canberra. I think you're going to be looking at hollow heights of around probably 15 to 30 metres.
Oh.
Some of the hollow heights where I've seen gang-gangs nesting before. So I think the pole aspect is going to be outside that realm, but maybe another aspect could be getting climbers into those nesting sites in the non-breeding season and do measurements that way.
That's a great question, Aaron. And actually, I forgot I was going to mention that. So thank you. Yes, the pole that we've got, even if you've got it, giving it to your tallest person, you're basically limited to 12 metres. It's on a squid pole, excuse me. And the biggest squid bowl I can get is 10 metres. Someone has mentioned window cleaning poles, but I haven't been able to find any that are bigger than 10 metres, which are light enough to manoeuvre it. You sort of have to move things around to look into the hollow. But we didn't use the pole for our first couple of years when we discovered it. We basically had people volunteer to watch a hollow for 20 minutes at least 4 times. And we've found that it doesn't really matter the time. Different gang-gang pairs are active out of things, but they do a thing called changeover. And we can explain how to look for a changeover. The female spends the night in the hollow and the male's there for some of the day. The female will come and back, but the female's there for the whole night. And just before that, there's this changeover at night and in morning, and they have a particular call. So if yours can be there, and if people are listening for that behaviour and that call, they can identify hollows fairly well. So you actually are right. You will need another group of people that are prepared to go and watch a hollow and check who's using it and whether, it's a nesting tree. From our percentage rate is that roughly 10% of the hollows that we watched were nesting trees. So, yeah, you've got to have a fair crowd of people, or people that are willing to go out and watch multiple trees. And we do have a few people on the spectrum who were willing to go out and do that, which was really great. So, thanks for that question.
Thanks, Michael.
I think that's an interesting one. You had lots and lots and lots of records around the ACT. But if we're starting, again, I don't know what's on iNaturalist. I don't know what records we've already got. But would you gather all the records that are available already in terms of sightings and then choose places to go? Or would you suggest asking people to suggest likely places to go and have a look at? How would you go about attacking a whole area? Because it's a big area.
So we joined up with our bird group, COG, the Canberra Ecologist group, and Rowan then in his question was saying he knew of some breeding trees. Now he might know of some trees that are breeding trees, or he might know of trees where birds have gone into hollows, but he's not going to be Robinson Crusoe. I think there'll be quite a few people. You've got a lot of bird watchers down there. So I'd be tapping into what people already know. Mm-hmm. I think your records basically tell you, if you look where those clusters are, that's where you would go for a walk with your camera. And gang-gangs are generally so noisy. They're most active during September. They get a bit quieter when they start nesting, which is about from October. They will go through till February, but we tend to see the adults encourage the chicks to come to the entrance of the hollow before they fledge. So you've got about a week where you can actually see chicks at the top of the hollow.
Right.
Those photos that I've had. So, and that's generally between Christmas and New Year's. So it's a really good family activity. Most of our volunteers are family groups who go out and watching the little gang-gangs. So
I think probably maybe we'll separate the two areas, the Budawang coast and the coastal wilderness, just because they're both big areas and different people. But as far as I'm concerned, it would be really good if we organised a Zoom call for anybody who's interested to come back and have you and Stacey talk to us and try and plan out an approach to this and see if we can get a gang going here. Obviously, we've got people like Sam, who's already worked with you and knows what goes on in this. So can I just say to everybody who's on the call that we'll send out an email after the presentation and ask you if you're interested in that to sign, and then we'll organise another meeting in the next week or two, if that's all right, Michael.
Yeah, look, and the thing is, for people to put the records on iNaturalist, historic photos, or even if they don't have a photo, just to put that record up. And then I'm hoping that someone down there will put their hand up to start to coordinate those records that go in and to checking them out and to prioritise which ones to see. And look, it's even if someone tells you precisely the locations of a tree, and even if you know the tree, sometimes it's really hard to actually find the hollow. So it's really good to contact the person who's made the sighting and to go out with that person when you first go and look at that hollow. So everybody knows which one it is. And
if somebody's taken the trouble to photograph a bird on the hollow, they may well be interested in going back on a regular basis to look to see.
Yeah, look, it's the same with what Erna and Lauren found. Once they've taken that, it becomes their bird, and right. they really look after it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, so that's all good. So I think that's what we'll do following this. Okay.
There's a question from Lou. There's a question from Lou, and I've given him access to the microphone. Or Lou, if it's he or she.
Hi, Lou. You build nest boxes. Can you unmute? Then you can talk to everybody.
Yes, I'm a member of Eden Men's Shed, and I make nest boxes when people order them. I've made them for rosellas, kookaburras, all sorts of birds. I've made a number of them, and I would like to try and make some for the glossy blacks and gang-gangs that are in my local area in Wombourne.
So I think if you come to the presentations tomorrow, which are about the science of nest boxes, and there will be information and links to the specifications for particular birds, and we're focusing at the moment on glossies and gang-gangs. So I think tomorrow there may be a few more answers, a bit more information that will help, and it would be great if you are interested in doing that.
And that's great. Look, we're still working out whether gang-gangs will use nest boxes and what's the best design for a gang-gang. So I think we're probably at least a year away before we'd be asking your men's group to make boxes. But certainly glossy blacks, they've been used on Kangaroo Island, the nest boxes, and they are utilised. So I think, your group can start with the glossy blacks because, they're a bit more advanced than we are.
My wife and I have watched both glossy blacks, red, yellow-tailed blacks and gang-gangs eating seeds at the back of our place. Well, actually right on now the border with our neighbour. And they stay there for hours and hours and hours just chewing, and you can hear them all over the yard.
Yeah, they're great things. So I look forward to seeing your photos on iNaturalist, Lou.
Well, my wife takes the photos, and she's got one there of a male that looks like he's got a Mohican haircut.
Yeah. Oh, well, that sounds good. That could be the poster boy.
Okay.
And we've got a question from Amanda Kay. Hi, Amanda. Would you like to talk to Michael?
Or Stacey, I'm hoping.
Oh, Stacey. Sorry, Stacey. Yes, it's because we can't see you.
Stacey's good with the bigger picture.
Hi, Amanda. Okay, well, I'll read Amanda's question out because she she's not managing to talk. Says we've got gang-gangs feeding in the peppermint gums on our property in the Blue Mountains, and we have loads of hollows, but we've never seen a gang-gang near a hollow. Wondering if they nest close to where they feed or further away.
We don't know. We don't even know how far they go when they've got young. So I think you've got to look in the breeding season and outside of the breeding season. So the breeding season is at October to January. So I think they're more likely to be feeding closer to where they nest during that time. But I'm only guessing. So hopefully with the study that the group up in Blue Mountains are doing and that you can get involved in, you'll be able to answer that question that I can't.
It's always good when a scientist says, I don't know. I like that. There's lots to find out, isn't there, Michael?
There is.
Right.
Questions from Craig there.
Have we, sorry, I can't see that. Oh, yes.
Yeah, g'day, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, Craig.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you've seen any changes in detections or the distribution of detections or movement patterns since the fires in the gang-gangs. I know they're not as susceptible to food losses as the glossy blacks are, but certainly the eucalyptus and wattle seeds that they feed on have taken a large hit in large swathes of the south coast where the canopy was consumed. Yeah, wondering if you've seen any changes in distribution and when you think there might be enough seed for them to return to those areas.
Look, until very recently, you weren't allowed even to put leg bands on gang-gangs because they're just these magnificent chewers. So, yeah, banning them from movement is pretty well impossible. So it's pretty hard to tell how they're moving through the landscape, and there just isn't that information. Now, maybe we can get inspired by what they're doing with the flossies and maybe use that approach with the gang-gangs. So look, we're in the dark and there isn't a lot of work being done on gang-gangs. So I think the work that Stacey's doing, which will be looking more at how they're distributed across the landscape, is going to be able to answer that a bit better. But at the moment, we don't have much information. Stacey, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I don't have anything to add except to say that there has been very anecdotal observations of changes in their movement. So gang-gangs are meant to be altitudinal migrants where they they're in the winter lowlands in the winter, and in the warmer months they go into the highlands. Whether that's the case everywhere, it's sort of, the verdict's still out, but there has been anecdotal evidence to suggest that they might be staying longer, that their seasonal migration might be changing. We don't really know whether that might be attributed to climate change or potentially changes in, as you said, some of their foraging species being smashed by the fires, and so just changes in the distribution of what's edible at what time. So again, we don't know, but hopefully looking at occupancy surveys this year, we'll get a good understanding of how they're distributed depending on altitude, but also key foraging species.
I think it's very exciting for the community, the people that are interested in birds and interested in what's going on, to be at the beginning of a project or a learning curve like this. So I think it's a really exciting thing for us to be involved in. And we've got Julie Morgan down here, who's a great bird watcher from Eurobodalla, is saying they've noticed a big move into eastern forests after the fires in the Eurobodalla. And for our own bird watchers down here on the far south coast, Barbara Jones saw, I think, 41 glossy blacks all in one place at Nethercote, which are numbers she's never seen in a whole lifetime of bird watching. So we've got people that are observing things. It's collecting all that information and bringing it together so that we can understand more. So I'd like to thank all our presenters today in terms of giving us really, really interesting insights into a whole new area of research that we can be involved in. It's been very exciting. And as I say, what I'll suggest, if Doug, is this okay in terms of privacy? Can we write to everybody who's been involved in the presentations today and tomorrow with the nest boxes and ask them if they're interested?
Absolutely, we'll have a list of everyone's. That's one of the reasons we get people to register, to get their emails, and they can just delete it if they don't want it. And I'm sure people are happy with that. But if they're not, they can send me an email as the host and say, don't send me any more emails. I don't think we were that bad. I thought it was an excellent presentation today by everyone, and just a fabulous way for a lot of people with common interests to connect up with people like you and Michael and all the other presenters, Libby.
Yes, it's superb. So we'd love to be involved down here, I'm sure. And I know the people at Budawang are as well. So we look forward to that. So you'll be hearing from us in terms of how we can get involved. And Michael and Stacey and Lauren and we'll be contacting you again to hear more about it. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you everybody who's joined us.
And look, just a reminder to everyone that when I end the meeting, I think it takes you to a closed screen. You should see an evaluation from Inspiring Australia. It is important to them to get that data because they have to go cap in hand to the government to get money, and it's important for us because if you all fill in the evaluation, when we go cap in hand to the people that have gone cap in hand to the government, we'll get some money to help support these events. So please fill in the evaluation. And I made the suggestion that if you wanted to do two, one for the gang-gangs, one for the glossies, that's fine. But if you just wanted to lump them together, that's good too. And thank you very much for everyone. And as I always say, it feels rude to just pull the plug on you all, but you're probably relieved after a couple of hours in Zoom. So go well, stay safe. And if there's anyone listening who's, well, we're all in lockdown, but there may be some people interstate. If there's someone in Western Australia, we had the bee, Babette, she was from Western Australia, and she was saying that things are pretty good over there. So if you're living the life, good on you, and we'll hopefully get back there as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you very much. Cheers.